So we'll be in the lab 2 today, and lab 2 says that create and manage resources using Azure CLI. Azure CLI. Now I told you that there are 4 things. First was Azure Portal. Azure Portal. Second was Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is all platform support. All platform support means every tool it is supporting, whether it is Bash or Bash Shell also and PowerShell also. It is platform independent Cloud Shell. They provide you both. Third was PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. So, if anyone clouds about tells about Azure PowerShell, and just you can understand okay from the Cloud Shell. But if anyone says okay Windows PowerShell, then definitely means PowerShell from your local. So that is Windows PowerShell. And fourth is Azure CLI. Azure CLI. So we'll do with Azure CLI, okay, and we'll see how to download this also, okay, how to download and run this, okay. But what first we see from Cloud Shell only. Now this is very much similar to PowerShell. What we are doing there, we were setting the variables as dollars, okay. There we were setting the variables as dollars, okay. Now here for CLI we don't use PowerShell, okay. For CLI we don't use PowerShell, so we have to start a Bash shell for this Bash shell, okay. So if I talk about Bash shell, so it's very simple that here PowerShell and you can select the Bash shell. I can confirm between PowerShell and Bash shell. See, Bash shell is here also. If I do ls, then I have a cloud drive, then the same file. So Bash shell and PowerShell shares the same file share, which we onboarded earlier. So they share the same file share, and whatever the files you will put, that is, you can run those files in the Bash shell also, in the PowerShell also. Now you cannot run this in here in the Bash because it's a PS1 file, okay. It's a PS1 file. So what you have to do, you have to create another file that will be if you want to run the same script, you have to create a shell script here, okay. We'll be learning the shell script in DevOps part, okay, because we'll be looking into Linux also, about all the Linux command which is used in DevOps, okay. We'll be looking basically admin also. If you have some Linux system, then you need to set up a Linux system and manage a Linux system, then you should know Linux commands, okay. So we'll be learning Linux there after this admin is finished, okay. So as of now is a Bash shell, and we have to choose Bash shell for running Azure CLI commands, okay. Now here you have to set, here you have to set. Now there are 2 things I told you earlier also. If you want the location to be set as any location, then you can simply do this. Now there, what we were doing there in PowerShell, we are denoting the variable as dollar, dollar location, but here we'll denote it as simple location, nothing else. Okay, we'll denote it simple location, simple RG name. That's it, nothing else. Okay, so simple location, simple RG name. And when we call those variables, then we will be using dollar here in Azure Shell. So there is nothing much difference between PowerShell and Azure Shell. There are many like minute differences which you have to remember. Okay, so if we start with, so let's set. But first, let me check what are the resource groups which are already there. So see, AZ104 1A RG01 is there. So we'll be creating 104 1B. Okay, 1B. So again, if I do a clear command here, okay, see, clear is working here also, clear is working there also. So I told you that there are some commands, system commands, which will be common. Cat will work here also. If I do a cat here and then that file name, what was that file name? Manage resource, na? So let's do it like this. Okay. So cat manage resource. It will display that file here also. Okay, so cat command works everywhere. ls command works everywhere. ls command also works everywhere. Okay, now we have to set location. So location equals code Central India. What else? Hmm, command not found. Okay, it's not command. Just a second. It's I think it will take dollar after Central India. If I put it like this, put dollar. Just a second. Let me check. Same command from the same notepads were working earlier. That I was confused at why it is not working here. Just a second. Okay, I was giving space, I think that's why. Here it's no space. Okay, so don't give spaces, okay? Don't give spaces. Because here also there is no space I've given. While typing the command, I was giving spaces, that's why. So in Azure, PowerShell space matters, okay? So if I set the variable dollar variable name is equals to then space, then all that. But here you can see there is no spaces here. That's why it has taken. Okay, earlier it was showing uh, no bash command or something like that. Okay, but here it is taken because there are no spaces in between. That's why.
But from my side, it will take like a space also.
It is taking.
I'm also tried. I have also tried here.
Okay, so no error given in bash.
No error. Yes.
Okay, then it's okay. I think because when I was typing, it was giving error, but when I paste it directly from the notepad, it doesn't give error. So I thought that.
Can you try with the space also once more?
Mhm. But so like variable is already set now. So we'll try with the disk
So,
variable. Okay, we'll try with the disk variable.
this variable. Yeah, yeah. This variable, other frame also.
Yes, yes. So let us create this one. So I think this command is az group create. Okay, we want to create a resource group. So az group create. Az group create hyphen hyphen resource group. That is dollar rg name and then hyphen hyphen location, which is dollar. Create resource group. Create hyphen name rg name hyphen location. Not resource.
Resource group and location.
There is typing mistake because uh, I'm used to
Yeah.
use PowerShell. That's why I don't use Cloud Shell. That's why there is mistakes while typing the commands here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a working.
Yes, yes. It's
Might be
what.
a typing mistake. Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. But that's scenario because if you
Mhm.
I every time I use PowerShell only for
Right,
scripting
right.
or anything. That's why I'm through
That,
in PowerShell and not here with Azure CLI. Okay.
mostly you are also using Windows only.
Pardon?
So mostly you are using, I think, the Windows only.
Yes, yes. PowerShell
Yeah,
only
yeah,
use.
yeah, yeah.
Linux I use, but I use Linux for just for commands or any shell scripting. So shell scripting
Mhm.
I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Azure CLI, like I never use Azure CLI. I just
Mhm.
use Azure CLI for teaching. That's it. Okay, this is Azure
Okay.
CLI. That's it. Otherwise, I use PowerShell and shell scripting. That's it.
Correct.
So see, it created that. Okay,
Mhm.
this is created.
Mhm. Yes.
So, so we have set the location variable here. We have taken it from the last resource group. Then resource group name we set. Then az resource group. We created the resource group. So command for creating a resource group is az group create. Okay, az group create. Then retrieve. Now for retrieving, you have to show. So Azure CLI uses this command, Azure group show. So whatever the resource groups will be there, if you put this command az group show, then it will display. Then it will display. Let me type az group show hyphen name, and then the name is $RG. See, like always I'm making mistake while typing Azure CLI command.
Name small n.
Okay, name small n. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I said you can use anything. No worries. No one will say why you are using PowerShell or Azure CLI. I always use PowerShell. Always.
Yeah.
Check with the
Because it's
PowerShell.
also checking case sensitive and the space also.
Yes, because this is very much case sensitive, Azure CLI.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have created this resource group. Now we have to create the disk. So for creating the disk, we have to set the disk variable. So this we have to set the disk config. So first we can give the disk name. Okay. So disk name I give.
So, is there any default file format for both?
Default file for both means one
Default
file.
format.
I didn't get to default file for
Default file format like YAML or like YAML, JSON. Which one is the default format?
for Azure CLI.
Yeah, for both.
Both means PowerShell.
Both, which we are using here. BASH, both.
Acha, Bash. So
Yeah,
see,
Bash.
Bash, mainly Bash shell is for Linux. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is inbuilt, it is coming with Azure CLI. So if you use Bash in some local Linux system, you will not find CLI there. You have to install Azure CLI there. Now this is Cloud Shell. That's why they have given pre-installed CLI with this Bash. Okay. So if you run CLI commands in local or somewhere, then you should be installing Azure CLI first in your Linux system or Bash. Then only you can use CLI. Okay. And if you are asking about file, then in
file
shell,
format.
in
Default
shell dot sh file will work. In shell dot sh file will work. Okay. In PowerShell dot ps file will work. Okay.
Okay. But for here actually
see whatever the name of the shell, it is like Bash is there is like sh shell. It is called an sh shell. That's why .sh file will work here. In PowerShell, it's a PowerShell, so PS file. They have defined that .ps. Okay.
we can also use here a JSON file.
JSON file, yeah, we can use JSON file, no worries.
JSON file and YAML file also.
Yeah, definitely. Linux supports YML file. Yeah, you can write in YML format. So YML format, if everyone doesn't know, then I can tell you that for setting up containers and resources for the infrastructure resources in Azure, we can use YML file. Okay, and YML file is supported in some like we create Docker files and then we create Kubernetes file. There we use YAML files.
Right.
Okay. So for setting up the infrastructure, YAML language has been written. Okay. So wherever there a task comes for setting up the infrastructure, yes, you can use the YAML language. No worries.
Okay.
Disk name -01b hyphen disk 0. Okay. Now it has taken. Okay. Now, as we did az group create, similarly here you can do az disk create, because you are creating a disk here. You are creating a disk here. Now, as we did set up that disk config in PowerShell in a variable, here we don't have to do that. Here we can do it directly. Okay. Here we can do it directly. Not write the command, I'll copy because then I'll make mistake. Okay, now you can see the command here, az disk create -- resource -- then $rg name, then -- name of the disk name, which we have given just now above this command, then SKU -- SKU, standard LRS, then size 32 GB. It's running. Okay. See, so this has been created. Okay. Disk has been created. So every other setting of the disk, as we have not given, we have given some 2-3 settings only. Means standard SKU we have set, size we have set. That's it. So the disk is created with all those things. No network has been set up. Just the disk size is 32 GB, and if it has mentioned SKU, yeah. See, name standard LRS, tier standard. Okay. So earlier in PowerShell, if we have to see the tier and the SKU name, it doesn't display in that. We have to see it separately. Okay, we have to see it separately, but here it displays in this. Okay, so it displays here only. Support capabilities, tags. So there are no tags as of now. Okay, time when it is created, type, Microsoft.compute disk, unique ID of the disk, then zones, everything, every information it will give here only. Okay, a disk has been set up here. Now to retrieve the properties, so for seeing, you will write create command, az, for creating a group, az group create, for displaying that resource group, az group show. Similarly, for creating a disk, az disk create. Okay, and showing the disk, az disk show. Okay, so if you will write this command, az disk show, it will display the disk which you have created just now. Now you have to update this disk. You have to update this. Okay. So you have to configure the manage disk by using CLI. Now, as we are using create option for creating, show option for displaying, then for updating, we need to do an update. So az disk update is the command, az disk update. So here we are updating the size -GB. Az disk update -- resource group name, disk name, and update size. So now it see if it updates the size or not. See, disk size in GB 64. Earlier it was here, disk size in GB was 32. So it has updated the size also. Now we'll update the tier also. Okay. You can verify with this command, az disk show. Now see what is the difference here. When you are doing az disk show, you're giving the resource group name and the name of the disk. And now you have to query between all these data. So it uses Azure CLI uses -- query, because it is asking that what you want to
Hello?
query from this data. Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Babu.
Please be in mute. Please be in mute. Hello. So here it will ask you what you have to query from all this data. So you can query anything. You can query the resource group name. You can query the public network access. You can query anything. Now here we are seeing whether the disk is updated or not. That's why we are saying disk size in GB. So we are querying this data here. So when we'll query, it will see, it will only show this data. It has not shown this whole chunk of data. It is just showing that, okay, you are querying disk size GB, it will display only disk size GB, 64. Okay. To change the disk performance SKU to premium LRS from the bash session. Okay. Now we are updating SKU. Earlier we updated size. So for updating the SKU, again easy disk update command. Here it is. And we will be updating premium LRS. Okay. So it will update. See, it has been updated to premium LRS. Now for checking AZ disk show, what I'll query? SKU. I'll query SKU. Simple. See. So it has been updated to premium LRS. It is now displaying only that SKU and nothing else. So this is how we create the resources using Azure CLI and manage the resources using Azure CLI. Okay. So if you like think that it is easy from using, so I'll tell that who is using a Linux system every now and then it may be a bit easy for that person that who is like working all through his like whatever profile he's working. If he's working Linux all through, then maybe it will be easy to use a Azure CLI for that person. But like mostly if you are working on Azure, so mostly you will be getting work in Windows only. So PowerShell, you will get tasks from the PowerShell. Okay. But yeah, it is good to have learning on the Linux system also. Even if you don't learn Azure CLI, no worries. But Linux should be must. But Linux is not that much, I'll say tough, because it is easy to run commands over Linux. But yeah, when it comes to Azure CLI, so definitely it has been taken from outside. Means they've installed Azure CLI here, module here. So they have made this Azure CLI compatible with Bash. That's why it must be having some limitations or some case sensitivities. Okay. But in case of PowerShell, it is very much clear. So Linux we will learn, but it is not a, I'm again saying that it's not a boundary that you should learn Azure CLI. You can just see how to create using Azure CLI. You can see the commands, you can see the everything. If somewhere, sometime you must get any requirement like that, then you can just refer the commands from somewhere, right? You can refer the commands from anywhere. So like this, you can, if you have some special requirement for running Azure CLI commands, then previously what you can do, you can prepare a notepad for that and just use those commands if you are not using Azure CLI every now and then. Okay. So if you are using PowerShell, then it's very much okay. If you are regularly using PowerShell, then it's very much okay with using PowerShell commands. You won't need any notepads like this. You can directly type and use, because that will be in your I think that you will be handy with those PowerShell commands. Or if you are using Linux, then you must be handy with Linux commands. So it depends in which environment you are working. Okay, so throughout, like from last 3-4 years, I was working with PowerShell, Windows, Azure. That's why, like, with that, I make mistakes with this Azure CLI. Typing the commands. Okay, so you should know the working. That's it. No worries. If you are making mistakes with typing commands in any other environment, that's fair. No worries. But you should be thorough in any one of it. Any one of it. Maybe it a PowerShell or CLI or anything. Okay, so you should be thorough in any one of it.
So Abhishek, if we suppose we want to use like Bash, so
Mhm.
for this required like a Linux system, like macOS, Linux.
See, you have a Windows system as of now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, you just need to install a hypervisor software at your end. So
Hypervisor.
hypervisor, if I talk, Oracle VirtualBox. Just install this in your system. Oracle VirtualBox.
On Windows system.
Yes, yes. This is a software. This is a software.
Yeah.
Download VirtualBox. This is a hypervisor. This is a hypervisor.
Mhm.
Hypervisor means on your physical machine. On your physical machine, you will install. So there is infra in your machine. Then there is a software operating system in your machine. Over that software, you will install a hypervisor. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is infra. Infra means RAM plus ROM. Then operating system of yours, operating system Windows. Then here you will install VMware or VirtualBox. Example is VirtualBox. Okay, we call it a hypervisor. Hypervisor. Okay, VMbox. This is VMbox from Oracle. Oracle is providing this. Many others are there. I think Citrix Zen is there. Citrix Zen. Citrix Zen. This is also provided from one company, I think Citrix only. So this is another example. So very popular is Oracle VirtualBox. So when you install this, this will let you create a number of virtual machines here. Like as we are creating virtual machine in cloud, then you can create virtual machine in your system only. So using this hypervisor software, you can create different virtual machines in your system. Earlier, when cloud was not there and we are using microservice applications, then we in on-premises, what we do, we install hypervisor softwares and we created virtual machines over that hypervisor software. This is also called a VMware software. Okay. So over this, you create different virtual machines and you host microservices in this. Earlier, when the cloud was not there. Okay. So VM1, VM2, or any kind of any VM you can create with any operating system. You can create a Linux virtual machine. You can create a Windows virtual machine over the hypervisor. And these machines will share. These machine will share the infrastructure from this machine only. So if you are having some 32 GB RAM or 16 GB RAM or 8 GB RAM, say 8 GB RAM system I am having, then from this 8 GB RAM only, these VMs will share. And these are very small VMs you will create, like of say 200, 300 MBs, 400 MB, like this you will create. Because why it's so small, these machines? Because you will run microservices. Like So I told you that there is an application which is developed, and that application too is developed in agile format. In agile format, it is like in different features. First feature is login page. So if there are 4 machines, I can host login page in this machine. I can host product page in this machine. So these are small features which will not uh, like those features will not want that much huge machine to run that feature. Login page, product page. Okay. So these machines are fine for running the microservice architecture applications. Okay. That's why this was introduced, hypervisor, for running microservice architecture. Later on, cloud came and like cloud dominated this all these things. So these are virtual machines. You can create different virtual machines. You can create a virtual machine with Linux. What kind of Linux? You can create Ubuntu machine, Ubuntu Linux. Then,
I have used this one.
pardon?
I have used the
Yes.
VirtualBox. I
I have
to do
used Oracle
files.
VirtualBox in my laptop. Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, but when I create machines,
Mhm.
it takes a lot of space, like RAM.
Correct.
I delete it.
Why? Because it it
That's all my
distributes.
data. My GP.
Pardon?
I install the server.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of
Yes, it takes a lot of
Oh.
space. Yes.
yeah, more than 5 gigs.
Yes, correct. So actually, I was able to run that smoothly because my laptop was of 16 GB RAM. 16
Mhm.
GB RAM. So that's why I was able to run it smoothly. Otherwise, in 8 GB or 4 GB RAM or 3 GB RAM, it won't be possible to run hypervisor.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. So
It's
you need
nice.
you
It's
need a
nice, but
high capacity machine to run this
Yeah.
hypervisor. So if
What-
your machine is like enough capable or something 8 GB also you have, then you can install this one. Try at least once. If you face some issues like your machine is slow or something like that, then just uninstall this. No worries. Just but try it once. You will get an idea
Yeah.
what is VirtualBox.
I have also 8 GB RAM.
Don't like
Yeah.
just install it. Just install it.
Yeah.
Try it once. How the machine is
Okay.
created inside VirtualBox. How we can connect to that machine inside VirtualBox. Just try it. Okay.
Okay.
And once
Okay.
you try, just delete it or uninstall that. No worries. Okay. Just save this virtualbox.org.
Mhm.
This is from Oracle. Okay. Very popular software for virtualization. See that 1DRG01 is created here, which we created just now. Disk 02. Okay. 64 GB premium SSD LRS. Okay. Now the third lab which I talk about, this was the second lab. This was the second lab. Third lab which I talk about is ARM templates. Okay. Lab 3 is same thing you will be doing from ARM templates. Okay. So Azure Resource Manager template.
One question, like, what is the difference between the shell scripting and Azure CLI commands?
See, shell scripting. What is a PowerShell scripting? I told you yesterday. What is PowerShell
Yeah,
scripting?
PowerShell scripting is look like we are
Group
creating
of
the
commands. Group of
group of
commands.
commands to create the resource and all the resource
Manage
by
the
using
resource.
yeah,
Right?
manage the resource. Yeah.
So shell scripting is a group of Linux commands.
Okay.
Okay. As PowerShell is a group, a PowerShell script is a group of PowerShell commands for creating and managing the resources. Similarly,
Terraform,
shell scripting is group of Linux commands for
like
creating and
Terraform, right?
managing the resources.
Like Terraform, right?
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but different in Terraform, we use different languages. We use a JSON or a YAML or other languages there in Terraform, right?
Yeah.
But here we use scripting language and scripting commands, which are totally developed by either Linux or PowerShell.
Okay. Now Azure CLI means like we are creating a
See,
um
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So, if you are creating anything, like there are different I'll say tools in the market. So
Okay.
if you heard about GitHub, okay, GitHub is where we manage the code, Now GitHub can be accessed. GitHub has given us a portal also, GitHub portal, from where you can manage, and GitHub giving you a command line interface also, CLI. So there is a tool called GitHub CLI, GitHub or Git Bash. So this Git Bash is nothing but a GitHub CLI environment. So similarly, if I talk about Docker is a container software. So Docker also provides you a portal to manage the Docker. Okay, and it also provides you a Docker CLI. Means whosoever want to go and achieve any task using portal, they can use the graphical user interface, GUI. This is nothing but the GUI, graphical user interface. Like similarly, like Windows. In Windows, we have a graphical user interface. You can see everything. You can just click and use anything. But if I talk about Linux, then Linux is not a graphical user interface. Linux is something this. If you open a Linux machine, you will just find command line interface and nothing else. You cannot see anything here. You have to
So that
manage
is
everything using command line interface.
that is called shell scripting, right?
Yes. So shell scripting is a scripting which can be run and being used in a Linux machine.
Yeah.
And PowerShell
Sure.
scripting can be used in Windows machine.
Windows machine. Yeah. Now the
So
yesterday
every other, just let me finish. So everyone has been set up his or her environment or its environment. That company has set up its environment according to the public needs. Means if public needs to use GitHub through GUI, then that person can use a GUI to set up GitHub or to push the their source code in the GitHub using GUI. If they want CLI means command line interface. Command line interface is similar to this, like PowerShell is a command line interface. If I talk about Windows, then again CMD is a command line interface. I can manage everything using this. I can manage everything using this command line interface. See, I can open a calculator using calc command, CALC. So it's up to me how I have to use. Okay, whether I have to use a graphical user interface, means I don't have to use this. I just go here, just a calculator, calculator. I can open a calculator. But if I don't want, I find it easy to manage. So now, what is the difference between a GUI, graphical user interface, and a command line interface? In graphical user interface, you will be doing everything one by one. Okay. So if I talk about portal, this is a graphical user interface. I can see everything. I can go, I can click everything. But if I want to create a virtual machine, I can create only one virtual machine at once. But if I talk about this command line interface, using command line interface and using scripting, I can create 50 virtual machine at once. I can create 100 virtual machine at once. That is the use of command line interfaces. that by using scripting or by using any language, you can create multiple environments. Here, if you use this graphical user interface, you will create only one environment. So if I have to deploy any application, in that application I'll be needing a storage account, I'll be needing a virtual machine, I'll be needing a virtual network, I'll be needing a database. So what I'll do, one by one, I'll create everything. I'll create a virtual machine, I'll create a storage account, but if I have that PowerShell script, or a shell script or Azure CLI, what I can do, I can create everything at once. You
Yeah,
got me,
that's
right?
right. You are saying PowerShell scripting, shell scripting, and Azure CLI.
Yes.
So that Azure CLI, and that's why just confusing over there. Azure CLI and
Azure
PowerShell
similarly, see,
Yeah.
as GitHub is providing Git CLI for
Yeah, I
command line
understood.
interface, as
I
Docker is
understood.
creating, similarly Azure is providing us their own command line interface.
Yeah. So
Azure
shell
CLI.
scripting is Linux one, right?
Yes, shell scripting is Linux only.
So we are not seeing shell scripting here, correct?
No, we'll learn shell scripting when we'll start DevOps. So
Sure.
very first
Sure.
class in DevOps, we'll be learning Linux first. All
Okay.
the Linux commands, shell scripting, everything we'll learn first.
Sure. Now yesterday we seen right PowerShell scripting using creating a resource group, right? So
Yes,
can we do the same method to Azure CLI scripting? Like
Yes, Azure CLI, you
Yeah.
can create a file.
okay.
Yeah, Azure CLI, you can create a file. Okay,
Can you
and
share
you can call that file. Yeah, sure. I'll share that.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, you can try at your end.
Yeah.
So Azure is providing their own CLI. So as you can download this Git Bash, you can download Docker CLI. Similarly, there is a tool called Azure CLI. So if I talk about Azure CLI here, this is the tool. Azure CLI. There will be a tool. Install Azure CLI. Okay. Install Azure CLI for Windows. So you will getting this CLI version. You can see, you can download for 32 version also, 64-bit version also. Just give it a try. Download it. I'll not download it here because this is my organizational laptop. My personal laptop is in repair. So, okay. So you can run CLI commands here. Okay, CLI version 2.4.9, and then add the following code. You can run. Okay. So this CLI bash is supporting CLI. Okay, bash supports CLI. But if you download CLI command line interface from Azure, it will support both PowerShell and bash.
Yeah, that's all. So inbuilt that Azure portal have the PowerShell and the bash. I mean the Azure CLI, right?
Yes, that is the cloud shell. Shell they have provided. Cloud means running over the internet. So if you are not having any laptop, you are not having any desktop, then you cannot access. But if you are having a phone or a tablet, you can just log into the portal. You can also use this cloud shell in your phone. You just have to type the commands. That's it. You can manage from your phone. You can manage from your tablet, right? So this is over the internet. This cloud shell is over the internet. That is why it's called a cloud shell. Okay. This is in Windows. That's why it is called Windows PowerShell. Now in the cloud shell, if I switch to PowerShell, then it is called Azure PowerShell. Okay. So there are different command line interfaces. You can use any one of them. It's not you have to worry that you have to use accordingly. No one will say how you create, how you manage the resources. No client will say no, use only Azure CLI. No client will say okay, no, use Azure PowerShell. They just want the work to be done. And these are all authorized tools. Authorized means they have been accepted by the organizations and they have interconnected them. They have interconnected all the tools. Means you can use this over here. You can use Azure CLI in Bash. Then if you download Azure CLI, then you can use PowerShell and Bash both in Azure CLI. So they have integrated all these things between them so that it's easily be used with like everyone can use it easily. That's why. Okay. So
Abhishek,
mhm.
sorry for yeah. So Azure CLI, we can say like it's also common CLI tool, just Azure Cloud.
Yes, this
And
is
do like
completely Azure is providing you their CLI tool, their own CLI tool.
yeah.
That is
So
Azure CLI.
both Bash and PowerShell both we can use through the Azure CLI and Azure Cloud.
Yes. You can run. See, it is telling you here that okay, you can set up a PowerShell here. You can set up. See, all these are PowerShell variables. So it is saying that when you are starting with Azure CLI, just run all these commands. Just run all these commands so that all the PowerShell, all the variables will be set up for PowerShell. And then you can run PowerShell scripts also here in Azure CLI. So this is the installation and setup of Azure CLI in Windows. Similarly, you can set up Azure CLI in Linux also. So if you are using Linux machine, whether it is an Ubuntu machine or a Red Hat machine, RHEL Red Hat, okay, whether it is a Azure Linux machine, okay. So Azure itself provided its own Linux image that is called Azure Linux. Like here, this image is provided by CentOS or Red Hat. Red Hat is a company. Okay. Here it is provided by Ubuntu or Debian. Debian is a company. Okay. So similarly, Azure provided its own Linux image, its own Linux operating system. That is Azure Linux. Then Zapper. Okay. Zapper is also provided by Red Hat only. OpenSUSE. Okay. Then install script. You can install any script. Okay. Install Azure CLI on Linux. So here also you can download. So in Linux we cannot download because we don't have graphical user interface in Linux. So what there you have to run the commands. Curl command is to get something or to download something from any URL. That's why it is curl command. Okay. So using curl command you can access this website. Okay. And then sudo apt get. Now sudo, I'll tell you when I'll teach Linux, because in between I'll tell you all these things and it will be difficult. Okay. So when we'll start with Linux, I'll tell you what is sudo apt get, what is everything. Okay. So this is nothing, just to update the package manager. Now Linux provides some package manager. Some packages there inside Linux. There are all library files and system files and binary files. So that is the library. Okay. And there is a package which is running that library. To update that package, we do apt get command. Okay. So this apt get command is for Ubuntu. Similarly, for Linux, there is different command. Yum is used in RHEL. Yum is a package manager. Okay. So here apt get, this is for Ubuntu. Similarly for Red Hat, it's Yum. So these are different package managers provider for Linux machine, different Linux images, Ubuntu image or RHEL provided by different companies. Why there are so many companies in Linux? Because Linux, when it was developed, it was open source. Linux is an open source operating system. Linux is open source. Open source means you can go and change the source code. So if you find anything to be upgraded or updated, anyone can come and change the source code of Linux. But you should have a valid proof of everything. Then only they will allow you to change the source code. So this Linux is open source. Open source means any functionality can be added at any time. Anytime the source code of Linux can be changed. Windows, on the other hand, Windows is completely handled by Microsoft. No open source. No open source. You cannot change anything in Windows source code. Okay. So this will be totally handled by Microsoft only. Microsoft.
There is no separate window for Azure Solar, right? Like PowerShell.
Separate window means
Like we are Windows PowerShell ISE, so we can enter the command over there, right? So like
see,
that.
see, that is also, this is from Microsoft only. Microsoft provided this. So this is the tool. If you can see downwards, this is the tool for PowerShell.
Yeah, this is like that. Yeah.
Windows PowerShell. There's a
Yeah.
like you download commands CLI, Azure CLI, you will get like this type of tool only in CLI also,
Okay.
where you can just run the commands. That is why it is called command line interface. CLI.
Yeah, I understood that. Yeah, that is
Okay.
understood.
So this is for PowerShell. This is also provided for Microsoft, and Microsoft also provided Azure also, and Azure CLI also. So Azure, in case like Azure CLI also is handled by Microsoft only. GitHub is also handled by Microsoft. GitHub is a tool that is provided by Microsoft only, and GitHub CLI is also provided by Microsoft. See, they have different products, and for different products they have developed different tools to manage all this. Okay. So if I want, I can install GitHub here only. I can install GitHub here only, and I can use all the Git commands here with PowerShell. No worries. And I can download Git Bash also. That is the CLI interface for GitHub. Git Bash. See? Git Bash. Git is providing this command line tool to me. Maybe I have downloaded Git Bash somewhere. No, not here. I've not downloaded it here. Okay. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible to you all?
Yes,
Yes,
Abhishek.
yes, Abhishek. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
I think this is some issue.
Yes, I think so.
Hello.
Yeah, you are audible now.
No one is answering.
You're audible, Abhishek.
Hello. Am I
Yeah,
audible
you
or
are
not?
audible, Abhishek.
Yeah,
We
hi.
can hear you.
Hello.
What happened? I don't know. I cannot listen. Okay. Okay, but I'm not able to hear you guys. No worries. So, this is just Linux commands. So we'll be learning Linux commands. Like I think in coming week and a half, like 1 week and half of the week, we'll complete this labs, and then we'll start with Linux and DevOps. Okay. So there in DevOps, we will be learning all the Linux commands. Then you will come to know. You will be clear by then. What is CLIs? What are Linux? What is PowerShell? You can be able to differentiate them. So here you have to install that thing. You have to install Azure CLI using all these commands here, whatever they have provided. Okay. And then if you click on get started with CLI, then AZ login, you'll get all the commands. AZ group for resource group, for virtual machine AZ VM, for storage account. Yes, you can rejoin, I think. Everyone just rejoin once again.